There is a space in my heart where I find the truth. I find me in you, a truth beyond what you may see now. But when we are one, we bring more good about. No matter who or what you call yourself or where you come from, yeah. There is a place in this world with open arms right now. Welcome to love, welcome to peace, welcome to our community. Be who you are, let your light shine. We're so much more when we unite. You are welcome here. You are welcome here. I see with new eyes, allow and unfold, embrace and let go, trust the flow. There's a freedom in love when you follow your heart. Together we are stronger than we could ever be apart. No matter who or what you call yourself or where you come from, yeah. There is a place in this world with open arms right now. Welcome to love, welcome to peace, welcome to our community. Be who you are, let your light shine. We're so much more when we unite. You are welcome here. You are welcome here. Breathe in and out. Slowly feel all that's around you. All that you feel, all that you know. Let it go. Welcome to love, welcome to peace, welcome to our community. Be who you are, let your light shine. We're so much more when we unite. Yeah, when we unite. Oh, we unite. Yeah, yeah, when we unite. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Welcome here. Love is welcome here. Peace is welcome here. You are welcome here.
Yes, indeed. You are welcome here to Center for Spiritual Living Ocala. I am Reverend Cindy Grimes, and I am so happy you have chosen to spend a little time with us on this Sunday afternoon or whenever it is that you are watching. And so here we are. You are welcome here, and we are a place of peace and love and spiritual growth and understanding. And so we will start out with our welcome, and let's see where that is, up in here someplace. Our little welcome slide that tells you all that we are about, and it's here someplace. Oh my gosh, here we go. So these are our values at Center for Spiritual Living Ocala. You know, it's really important to know what an organization stands for. And so the values are right up front here. This is what we're about. Number one is spiritual growth and practice. That is the reason that we come together, to learn and to grow and to share practices that help us live our best lives. We value love. Love is what we're all about, where we believe we came from and where we return to. It is the essence of the allness, and all there is love. When you peel everything else away, that's what we believe anyway. We value appreciation and believe that what we have gratitude for and what we appreciate appreciates. That is, it grows in our awareness and our understanding. So we value appreciation, and we value community. We know that there are things, that we can all learn and that we need to learn on our own, but we can always accelerate that growth and understanding and learning through community, because we are mirrors of one another. So it shortens up the learning curve a little bit to be in community. We also value freedom, freedom to express, freedom to be all that we came here to be in this life. We value creativity. We believe that we are created in the image and likeness of the ultimate creator. And that means that we have the creative capacity to create our life experience. And so creativity is very important to us, as is health and wholeness. We talk about health in its largest aspect, right? The health of our physical being, of our financial well-being, of our emotions and our mental health. And this year we've spent a lot of time talking about emotional health and mental health and well-being, as we are all coming out of this pandemic and struggling to various ways. A lot of our conversations have been around health and wholeness. We value generosity, and giving, and we try to do that as a community. And so, keeping that ball in motion, we give what we want to receive, and it comes back to us, and we give more, and that leads to financial well-being. Which is also important. So our vision as Center for Spiritual Living Ocala is that we are a model center for spiritual living, as evidenced by the transformational impact we have on our spiritual community, on the larger Centers for Spiritual Living organization, and the larger community, right? The world at large. And for here, it's Ocala, although now that we are online, it's a bigger presence, a bigger world. And our mission is to empower individuals to awaken to the power and presence that lives within and all around them. In other words, that thing some people call God, we really believe that it is here everywhere. Whether we want it to, whether we believe it, it's always here. And it's part of our work at Centers for Spiritual Living to help people tap into that incredible power and presence. So that is the introduction of what we're about at Centers for Spiritual Living and the bigger piece of it. And at this Center for Spiritual Living, we have been studying the work this past year of a woman named Valerie Kaur, who is an activist. She is of the Sikh faith, and she has written a book called See No Stranger. And out of that, something called the Revolutionary Love Project, which is all about love in its largest manifestation, loving others, loving our so-called opponents or people we may not agree with, maybe temporary opponents, and also loving ourselves. That's the part that we are talking about from now through the end of the year, talking about loving ourselves. So we started this part of the conversation with talking about the birth metaphor, and the idea that when we're birthing something new, which feels like what is wanting to happen in our society, in our culture, in our world today, that there is something new ways of being that are wanting to be born. And in that birthing process, there is pain, there is drama, there is the messiness, there's all of that stuff. But it's here for a purpose and a reason, and to have things come to be better. And so as we love ourselves, we use that birth metaphor, that there is time for breathing. That's absolutely necessary to this process. And there is time for pushing. And we breathe and we push and we breathe and we push and we breathe and we push until we go to that moment of transition and the birth happens, the new thing comes to life, and there is the joy and the newness and all that goes along with that. So we're talking about pushing this month and what that looks like and feels like in different ways. And I'm going to pull up a slide here somewhere about that. Breathe and push. So this is what Valerie says. This is a quote from the book. To push is to enter grief, rage, or trauma as part of the healing process. Pushing requires us to discern the right times to breathe and rest, and the right time to push through painful sensations, emotions, and thoughts to birth new possibilities within ourselves and others. And so that is what we are talking about today, specifically around the ideas of compassion and forgiveness and accountability. And I have a couple of my friends that are joining me in this conversation. It's not an interview, it's a panel discussion. I just love for people to hear different perspectives and points of view. And these are two individuals who know this work, who understand these concepts of forgiveness and compassion and accountability because they have experienced these things in their own lives. And so I'm going to bring the first one in, Reverend Rodney Gittens, my friend. Hello, Rodney, from the One Love Center in Brooklyn, New York. Welcome, Reverend Rodney Gittens.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. And our other friend is the dear Reverend Mary Ellen Cassie from Ontario, Canada.
Hello. Great
Hello.
to be here.
So I just wanted everybody to say hello, and Reverend Rodney has so graciously agreed to doing our invocation. So
Thank
y'all
you
will
so
get to hear
much.
this.
I invite each and everyone to be right where you are, knowing that there is a wonderful opportunity to push, knowing that that push is the wonderful action of the universe that is birthing itself each and every moment, whether it's from an awareness of a beingness or a concept or a consciousness of that which we call God. And I mean we, meaning every sentient being has some understanding or awareness of something even greater than themselves, even if it is themselves wrapped up in idea of the oneness and the connectedness with all there is. And that most certainly is greater than any one individualized expression of the one. So I am known as an individualized expression of the one, that there is the greatness that is in each and every one, and that is just imbued itself, that has congealed itself in so many different forms, a mosaic of individuality, of the power, the presence, the love, and all of that is pushing itself out. And there's an old acronym for push: pray until something happens. And this prayer is indeed creating out of itself, out of the very words, the very intention for today's celebration, for today's conversation, of taking a deeper look at this birthing process of this push through forgiveness and accountability and compassion, of this greater awareness. So I bless all those in attendance. I bless Reverend Cindy and Reverend Marielle, and knowing that all those who are participating in today's conversation are of the one mind, are in touch with this indwelling spirit that is most certainly shared by all, that is expressing in, through, and as each and every one. So I know it's already a wonderful, success-filled, joyful, fun-loving, educational opportunity for us to dive even deeper into the awareness of using whatever means necessary to forgive and be accountable for who we are in the world, and to move past previous experiences, with a greater understanding of the one love that is available in, through, and as each and every one. So for this and so much more, I give thanks. I give thanks for this party, this celebration as it unfolds, because it is the one mind in full effect that is bringing this to fruition. I bless it all. I know it is good. I affirm it is so good. You know, I can just release it and allow it to be, allow it to unfold perfectly, and simply by saying, "Amen," and now it is.
Amen. And now it is.
Thanks, Rodney.
Yes, Rodney. It always makes me smile to hear your voice.
Same here. Thank
And
you
I
all.
am so happy to share it with my community so they get to hear it as well. How y'all doing? I
Doing
want to
great.
excellent, excellent. A special shout to Mary Ellen for last week. I didn't mention this at the beginning, but I was ready to do the. I thought I was ready to do the broadcast, and all of a sudden, a wave of something hit me, and it was like, I need to lay down right now, you know. And so I did that, and my friends picked up the ball and, oof, ran with it. And it was such a beautiful and deep conversation. I thank you, Mary Ellen, for sharing. You know, as
But you're
authentic.
always welcome, Cynthia. Always.
Yes, thank you, thank you. So I just appreciate you all. We started the month with the two of you having this, you know, in this idea of push, and I thought we needed to bring this little trilogy back together again so we could continue this conversation. You know, just another little deeper level.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I don't know about you, but this COVID experience and other events have really I'm living this stuff is what is what I want to say, right? Take time to breathe, okay, relax because now it's time to push, you know, and breathe and push and the transition is coming and I can feel it like there's all of this stuff going on and it hasn't been easy. It has not been easy by any stretch, but coming out of it, you know, like whatever little sickness I had this week, you know, was for me. It was a physical purging that was symbolic of the larger metaphorical purging that is happening in my life. And I know that when I got up the next day after it had passed, I felt a calm that I haven't felt in a long time. You know,
Okay.
right? Which reminds me that, you know, it's all part of the process, right? You know, there's all of that upheaval and all that stuff that happens, and then once it passes, it's like, oof, okay, I can breathe again. Yeah, yeah. So, so I wanted to start this conversation in talking specifically about forgiveness. And I know you guys talked last week a little bit about this idea of our story, right? And that we all have a story, right? Everyone has parts of their lives that they'd rather, you know, people didn't know about or that they didn't have to think about, the things that bring us shame, like, right, those parts of our story. But the thing is that the things that we don't own us, and that whole idea of hiding and ignoring and suppressing and self-blame and criticism just make a bad situation worse. So I know what I believe to be the antidote to that. And let me share a quote from Brene Brown. She says, Brene Brown defines shame as the intensely painful feeling or experience of believing that we are flawed. We are like fundamentally flawed and therefore unworthy of love and belonging because something we've experienced, something we've done, or something we have failed to do makes us unworthy of connection. And shame is much more likely to be the source of destructive, hurtful behavior than a solution or a cure. And so I start with that to see what your thoughts are. Do you agree with that? You know, this idea of shaming really just makes things worse. Although it is a very natural kind of reaction and feeling when things happen that we feel like shouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So anyone want to take that on?
Yeah, you know, that thing about shame, I think even though it's we naturally can fall into it, I think it's passed on also. I think we're taught shame. We're taught to be ashamed of things, ashamed of our bodies, ashamed of how we look or don't look, um, or ashamed of maybe if something comes out and we like, oh well, gee, maybe that wasn't a helpful thing to say, and or we don't know it, but the reaction of other people, and then we're taught to be ashamed of maybe a very simple mistake or an error. And so I think a lot of it is societal. I think we're taught how to behave in the moment, and it's very easy for shame and blame to be right there, especially. I'll speak for myself, but maybe others might have can identify with it. I find that it's so what's the word unempowering, disempowering.
Yeah.
Uh, that there are people who are ready, willing, and able to have us feel shame and blame so they can feel a little bit more powerful than we do.
Hmm.
Teach
Hmm.
me how to belittle myself and before you, you know, that kind of thing. And and so it's just a learned behavior that it's so insidious because it becomes a part of my own thought process. I should be ashamed of myself, shame on me. We say these things so readily, so quickly, even if it doesn't deserve shame, which I don't know what does, but you know,
Hmm.
but that's how it comes up for me. And so when I hear myself say those things, like yesterday, I had a very relaxing day. I didn't do a whole lot of things that I was supposed to do, scheduled to do, planned to do. And the first thing that I thought of to myself was, oh, shame on me. And I felt embarrassed telling somebody that I was relaxing and resting, you know, something that I needed to do. However, I felt like I had to apologize for taking care of myself. And so instead, I felt embarrassed and shameful.
Hmm. Yeah. I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you. It's it just strikes me the universality of it, is just that. And here we all sit isolated in our own little, our own little shame, right? Thinking that nobody else has experienced this, or what if people found out this happened or that happened? And we isolate ourselves further, and it expands whatever that darkness is, whatever that thing is, right? It just makes it bigger because we have isolated ourselves, right? The shame, it creates this self-perpetuating kind of a cycle. Mary Ellen, you want to speak to that?
Sure, I can speak to this. This set me back a few years ago, this topic called shame. I had attended a parole hearing for my son in 2014 on my New Year's in September. And I learned some of the facts. Of course, the parole was not granted, and I came home actually in a rage. I came home in a rage. But then I became frozen. I locked myself up here in my home and gardened for 3 weeks straight in the rain. And it took me from September until August. And it's very funny that there's no fun, there's no accidents here. Brene Brown is the one that helped me come out through Reverend Dr. Georgia Prescott on a talk that she gave. I was here. I had to take a leave of absence from my schoolwork, from my ministerial schoolwork for a bit, and then work through it because I had never felt anything quite like this before. And I didn't even know what to call it. I just knew I was not well. I lost the faculties of thinking or putting thoughts together or or retaining anything. I was just numb from my experience. And so, lo and behold, I followed Dr. Prescott for some time and on Sundays. And so this one day, August the 10th, I ended up 10th through the 11th of 2015. I watched her talk, and she was talking about vulnerability and Brene Brown's book. And then she described what shame was. Brene has the description of shame probably here, but she also talked about the physical symptoms. Because I kept looking in the mirror, I thought, okay, I'm coming out of my shell. I'm able to go outside now. It was like taking baby steps of healing myself. And I think it's a reflection about going in and exploring this feeling. But once I watched it Sunday, and I watched in the morning, and then I watched it in the afternoon, and then I couldn't believe it to be true because I got the answer. I thought, oh my God, this is what it is. I'm back on just a talk. So how interesting our words can play for anyone across the province and the world, as far as I'm concerned. And so I thought that's exactly me. I looked in the mirror and I said, okay, now I can see myself again. And I put my application back into school and away I went again. But that word has never come across. I never felt shame like that. And I think shame is different from being ashamed. I think that's personal, and then something else happens to us, an experience that we may not have even been involved in. Yeah. But because I happen to be the mother of the son of mine, I had a different kind of experience. So I think that's probably enough for now to know that I'm alive and well and certainly great all the way around. And I'm happy to be here to talk about self-forgiveness. I think this is where it led me to, put me on a different path of accepting. And so there is a cure. And one of the things I want to say, sometimes we choose to suffer. That's not my option usually. I don't like it very much. and sometimes we carry that baggage for a lifetime.
Some people never let it go, right? Some people never let it go.
Yes, you have to hold their, and it's not about just holding the baggage of what happened. It's about holding us in the most tender way possible. I mean, I've had to reparent myself and do a whole bunch of work behind here to get to where I'm at today, but I don't have that baggage. I don't have any bags packed to travel with me anymore. And I think every time you want to tell a story, we embellish it. And I think we laugh about it, but I think everybody does. It's like, oh, Rodney, let me share this. My story must be better than your story. No, it isn't. I did not want any competition, let me tell you. I had to come through that. One of the things I learned many, many years ago when I was studying Buddhism was that things do not happen to me. They happen through me with my saving grace. And then, of course, falling in love with these teachings now, and especially Valerie's work. And one of the things I think you don't forget what happened. I don't forget any stepping stones I've had in my life, but I have learned to forgive.
Yeah, thank you for making that distinction, right? Because forgiveness is not the same as forgetting. In fact, forgiveness is not anything to do with forgetting. You can remember very well the things that happen.
I haven't gone up because it's like the door opens up when we want to release and dive in. And there's no accidents. I didn't know what this talk would be this week, but I've already signed up for another. I do grief recovery work, and so I've been doing that since 2014. And I signed up because I'm part of an alumni now, and I'm taking another run at myself. And I asked permission if this is how God works, and I said yes. I said, okay, I'm going to ask the question, because the forgiveness piece I'm going to work on next is my relationship with myself.
Yeah.
About forgiveness. What do I have left to forgive about myself now? It's really intricate work, and I love it. And that's why I can say I'm emancipated and I'm free today because of the work I do. And now I have forgotten some of I don't tell the story. It's not worth telling. Right. It's just not worth telling. I want to be thriving and surviving. It's quite a different place to come from. A loving place for myself. That's the other piece. I think we'll probably get into some of that, but I just want to share that for me. I know I have been shamed, but I could work through that, I guess. But this was an interior thing that I had never felt. My legs were cut out from underneath me. So that was a difficult time, and now it's a blessing. We get to transform and transition, and that's what I think forgiveness does. It transpires us to, when we look at it and become aware of it, we can agree with it and do the work and be free of it. It's a simple recipe, but you personally, I had to show up myself. No one else could do this for me.
So I think, and thank you for sharing. And you brought up a lot of really great points. And I want to make sure that we get the essence of this, right? When someone is in that space of shame, when someone is in that place of pain, of either they have done something, someone else has done something, for whatever reason, they're feeling less than, right? And that's part of the very damaging thing about shame that Brene talks about, that we can feel guilt, right? You do something wrong. It's very appropriate to feel guilt. Wow, I did something wrong. I need to make this right. Versus I am garbage, right? That what shame tells you is that you're less than, and that's not helpful to anybody or anything. So when people find themselves in that position, I think the first thing is really that self-compassion, right? Is just, and by compassion is feeling, is feeling whatever that pain is of that individual, allowing yourself to feel your own pain, but also with the feeling of let's do something to fix this. Let's do something, like I want to help you in your pain, right? I don't want to stay stuck in my own pain. I want to come out of this. And so I think, and this work comes from a woman named Kristen Neff, who studied this, idea of self-compassion, and it breaks down to three different things. Number one is kindness, is self-kindness, right? It's like treating yourself like you would treat someone you love, your grandchild, your beloved, just somebody you love. The next piece is recognizing our common humanity. Like, wow, I'm just a human being. And this is really, I like having these discussions with you all as fellow ministers, because people like to put us up on a pedestal, or sometimes we put ourselves on a pedestal because we're supposed to be spiritual leaders and I'm supposed to be beyond this. I'm not supposed to react this way, right? Mm-hmm. Reminding ourselves of our common humanity. I'm a human being. We're all human beings. We're all on the path together, right? That's the next thing. And then the last piece is mindfulness. Like, whatever this situation is, this too shall pass. This is the moment, right? I'm here. I'm going to be present, not dragging all this crap from however many years ago into this moment, worrying about tomorrow. I'm just going to be right here, right now. So I think, I feel like compassion is the first thing. And then we move into forgiveness and then accountability. How do we make it right? So I just wanted to set the stage for that, because I know that you both have done your own work in terms of self-compassion.
Thank you for, and I would agree with that. Our I mean, I can remember that there were a lot of years I knew nothing about forgiveness, self compassion. Um, Folks were hard on me, and I was hard on me. Yeah, I just thought that was just how to go through life. I mean, yeah, I felt like I had a train load of baggage, you know, and of course, most of it wasn't mine, but you know, however, that's just how it seemed. I mean, well into my um, 30s, I had a train load of baggage. I wasn't compassionate with myself. Everything added up. It was. I mean, we talked about. I mean, part of the discussion turned into accountability. I was taking it to another level. I was like, that guilt was like, I could be accountable for something that I had nothing to do with. I mean,
Mm.
you know, I was just, I'll take it on. You know, why not? You know, everything else is, you know. So that just, uh, I remember going to very early one of those self help groups, live stream or something like that, and
Landmark. I bet you it was Landmark.
well, it was before Landmark, but yeah,
Landmark.
Landmark also, and that's when I that word became personal, compassion and forgiveness, and we were doing exercises where I could actually begin to really feel for myself, like, oh my gosh, you know, I don't have to accept this. I can actually like myself. I can possibly even love myself, and I started dropping off the cars on that train of unforgiveness and guilt and blame and shame. And then, yeah, as it got closer and closer to what I was really accountable for, and of course, it got more and more difficult.
Mhm.
And but the compassion feels so good. If there's anybody going through stuff and you just feel like you have to hold on to it forever, you don't. I thought I was just going to go through that the rest of my whole life, not forgetting, not forgiving, and just like, well, that's it. I mean, you know, full up to here, overflowing with stuff, and bit by bit, feeling that freedom just from being able to be compassionate with myself, whether I was right or wrong. I could still be compassionate with myself. I could have a little bit of an understanding of you know what, give myself the benefit of the doubt, and just I remember somebody had a saying like, stop beating yourself with a stick, throw the stick away and use a feather. Oh, and the concept of beating myself with a feather felt so much, you know, that seems like compassion, you know. It's like, wow, I was just able to begin to embrace another concept of how I treat myself. So yeah, the compassion is essential before we even get to forgiving.
Thank you, Rodney. Thank you. Mary Ellen, and you know, I mean, the time is just like whew, zipping by, zipping by. I want to make sure that we have a little bit of time to just touch on accountability, and then we'll finish that up. But your thoughts on this idea of compassion, and how did you learn to have compassion for yourself?
Well, when I went to become a Buddhist, that was my phrase. The phrase that I wrote in my diary every year, I renewed a new diary. It would be, let compassion be my compass. I mean, that was my compass. That's how I operated from. And it was mostly for other people. I had to really dive deep recently to do the work that I be doing, and that compassion is for me too. The love is for me, and the forgiveness is for me. I'll be working on that in a couple of weeks, but I just think the compassion is the part of the piece you spoke about humanity earlier too, Cindy, is that we're all in the human family. And so humanity wise, etc., and we can be kind and say hello or smile. Sometimes that's not happening these days with the current atmosphere. However, I know that it works because it was freeing. It was freeing for me to have that, or to have empathy towards someone else. If I get to see them, I don't have to take on the symptoms, et cetera, but I can lend my heart. I can see with my eyes, and I can hear. And so one of the greatest gifts out of compassion for me back then, because I did a lot of hospice work for 10 years, was that I got to listen, and you get to be a witness when you are a listener, and to validate whatever someone is in. I don't have to jump into their circle. I'm on the, to be safe, we need to stay on the peripheral of it all, but to be there physically, mentally, and giving of ourselves, and lending my heart out. And so the part for me, when you talk about accountability, is that I had to be accountable for my own life. I mean, to get moved out of being a victim or a victorious, you had to do something. You had to be accountable and responsible. And, you know, these teachings of Science of Mind certainly helped me find love for myself. And I've never looked back, because it's now about being accountable and responsible. And then in a way to be able to take action, because I don't think, you mentioned it earlier about forgiveness, and then, well, compassion, forgiveness, and then
Accountability.
Accountability. But I also want to throw in the word, forgive me for that, but I think forgiveness for me was reconciliation, that I was healed.
Yeah.
Before I became accountable, to wake up to notice that will never happen in my life again. And if it did, I have my toy box full of things to do now, and words so that I can speak, and an understanding, because I've lived through my own experience, to be able to be that witness, or that listener, or that person to help guide you, perhaps, and say what I did. Forgiveness has been a gift to myself. I never thought I'd cross that bridge. I had a lot of hate. I didn't think I'd ever get to where I'm at today. And it's quite amazing. There's no residual. I don't have the residual building in the background, waiting to pop up like a jack in the box again. Gotcha. It isn't going to be there, because it's empty.
Sure.
And so when I think of that as a gift, forgiveness being a gift to me in my healing work, I'd say that's a gift to anybody that wants to really look at it, become aware of what it is, and then release it and let it go. I mean, there's steps to get there, but you've mentioned Kristen. I mean, she's wonderful. So,
yeah,
you know, as we all are, we're all doing our work. It's personal. No one can do it for us, and no one can do it. I can't do it for anybody else either.
You're so right. You know, and the timing has to be right for it, right? You can't
Yes.
compel someone to do this. You know, like when I was when my kids were little, and I say, well, you say you're sorry, you know, to my kids, you know, like I would do it differently now, create the space for that to happen. But instead of trying to make somebody say what they're not really feeling, you know, it has to come from the individual. But I want to say how worthwhile it is doing. It is not easy. It is not easy to forgive either ourselves or other people. You know, but probably ourselves, I think, is probably the tougher one,
Yes.
right? Is to
I
forgive
have
ourselves.
to agree, because I shook last week when I applied for this course.
Mhm.
I said, well, that's got to be the right one to do. And that's me. The other words I'd like to say, Cindy, is like, if you are, is like, I used to ask my children this, and now even my grandchildren, help me understand. If I don't understand you, I would say that, because that's very compassionate and loving. I may not understand what you're saying, so help me understand what the woundedness is, or whatever. It's all of that. It's just being open.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think I wanted to wrap it up. Oh, you got something, Ronnie? You want to wrap that piece up?
Well,
We're about at
yeah,
time.
just a little bit about the accountability. Uh,
Yes.
three things. One is, yeah, I agree. It's better to understand than to be understood, which allows us to be listening, and listening is an act of compassion when we're showing that we're caring. The part about accountability and responsibility, I remember one of the things that opened me up was that there was a lot that I'm just not responsible for. Like going through a part of my life under the throes of addiction, I realized I wasn't responsible for a lot of what happened. However, I was accountable for the role that I played. And so I had to be not just I had to answer to it and be accountable for, like, okay, I can't change anything. And part of the forgiveness was saying, yes, I am accountable. I am owning up to it for myself, and thereby releasing the shame, the guilt, the blame, and all of that, which is kind of negative and dragging me down. And yeah, it's not easy. It's, how they say, it's simple but not easy, because it's we can spell it out all day long. We can write it out and recite it. However, doing the work is part of the accountability of owning up to it in such a way that it's going to create a healing for anybody who's affected, and most certainly for myself. Part of the accountability is not just saying I'm sorry; it's for apologizing and then moving on to what can be done next.
Well, I think it's, and maybe this is more the word reconciliation, but to me, it's doing sorry. It's not
Hmm.
just
Yeah,
I'm saying I'm sorry. Okay, it's acknowledging the wrongdoing, but then also doing what I can to make things right,
Hmm.
right? To set things so that they don't happen again. And I think that brings it full circle to owning your own story,
Hmm.
right? Like this
yeah,
is it. This is what happened, or this is what I did. This is the information, the facts, so to speak, right? Now, where do we go from here? And I'm going to do what's mine within that, right? I know you had a great acronym for that, Rodney.
Yeah, I did, didn't I?
Yeah, it's yes. So doing sorry, right? Did you
Oh,
want to say anything, Mary Ellen?
well, I was just going to say the part about accountability, I always sort of link them. I guess I'm hooked on accountability and responsibility together. But I think that our responsibility, I know myself and I know the triune here together with the two of my dear friends, is that responsibility is really our state of consciousness in any moment. And so we come with different enlightenment, I suppose. I don't really like that word because I get there when I leave the plane here. But I think that consciousness is that awareness. It's there all the time, waiting for us to use this and to put it into action. And so I think that's part of that is that when we come complete, it's like, how we center ourselves, etc. Then you can dip in the arena of ownership, accountability, but you come with a different mind. We're mindful. We come with a compassionate heart. We come with mindfulness. It's all wrapped up. I know these words like accountability means, yes, this is mine to do. This is my work I'm doing. And whenever that comes up, I'm already getting anxious about it. So I know that I'm on the right path. That's the key for me before I'd say, oh, that might be too hard. I might veer the other way, take a different route.
Right.
Not anymore. I just dive in because I'm not alone anymore.
That's right. We're taking
That
it
took a
on.
few years to get.
And that is really that's part of the shift that we have
Yes,
been talking
that's the
about,
transition
is
piece.
what, that diving into to the situation, not the denial, not that I'm not going to look at
No,
it, but I'm actually going to stare you down and go on through to the other side, right?
mhm.
Because we have what it takes, and that's the faith piece. But I think, let me see, I'm going to put your quote up here, Rodney, because I'm sure that brings us to time. Oh, yeah, we've been on for a while. The antidote to release shame, just the facts, man, just the facts, just the forgiveness, accountability, compassion, and truth supporting strength. Love it. Just the facts. And really, that's what it is about, right? The facts. The accountability, like this is the starting point. This is where we are. Where do we go from here? How do we move? So, yeah, next week we're going to talk about setting boundaries. That's going to be an interesting one for folks that want to join us for that conversation. And I thank you. I thank you, my beautiful colleagues. Do you have anything, either one of you, you want to say in closing?
Sure. I want to say that, yeah, we do get to forgive and forget. However, when we forget, and most of the time, what we're forgetting is the stuff that's not the facts. you know, it's like the stuff that doesn't really matter. And as we do that, we get, and as we get, then we get to give, we get to forgive. So as we are forgetting that which doesn't really matter, we are able to give and forgive for ourselves and for everybody else in whatever that situation is.
Wonderful. Thank you, Reverend Rodney. Mary Ellen.
Well, I just want to say, I think I always go back to bearing a witness because I know how important that is to have someone listen without engaging or distracting and just being 100% present. So I bear witness with a compassionate heart, and we can all do that. I had somebody come and sit and hold my hand without a word all day long with me when I was in a lot of pain 20 years ago. And I call her an angel. Her name was Gail. I hardly ever see her, but she'll always be an angel that could just come and sit. And I don't know how she did that, because I know I've done that myself for people, but you don't know somebody. But when that was offered to me, I said, yes, I'd really like that. I didn't make any talking. I was going through the feelings and crying, etc. And so it's important, even if you just want to hold a hand or say, I'm here for you, anything you need. Most of us, I can't say, I take that back. For myself, it's hard for me to ask for things for myself. And that was something that was gifted to me, and I took it up I soaked it up like a rag with water. It was like brilliant that somebody would come and do that with me. And then I was alone again. But I'll never forget the feeling of having someone just holding my hand.
Yeah.
And so I think that's, have good friends around you and have someone you can go to.
Thank you, Mary Ellen. And thank you for just, bringing it back to its most basic simplicity is just being present.
Yeah.
Right? Like I'm going to let go of my stuff so that I can be here for you to move through whatever it is. And what a beautiful gift that is to give somebody.
Yeah.
And to know that, and if you don't have those people in your life, reach out to spiritual community, reach out to a practitioner, a minister, give us a call wherever you may be in the country or around the world, that we can help you plug in to someplace where you can be presenced, witnessed as you move through difficulty. So thank you, my beautiful friends. I love you both. We'll be on Zoom after this. If you'd like to join us, you are welcome. And for anyone who wants to continue the conversation, do join us on Zoom. The address or the information is in the chat. Love you both. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Love you, man. Love you, Rick. All right.
Thanks.
Let's see. All right, wonderful. Thank you for being with us. That brings us into the next part of our conversation here. And yes, sharing our gifts and tithes. And so I just want to encourage you, if you are spiritually fed by the conversations that we have here, either virtually or if you are a participant and come out to the center, do share your gifts and tithes with us, and we gladly will take it and appreciate it very much. And of course, what we appreciates what we give, sets the wheel in motion for what we receive. So we make it really easy for people to give to Center for Spiritual Living Ocala. You can give on our website, which is cslocala.org, or you can text to Tide. There's a number going across the screen right now. And what that is, if you have a smartphone, you can send a text message to that number with the amount of money you would like to give to the center. And once it's set up, it will go from your account into our account, and it's super easy. And it feels really good. It feels really good. So here is the affirmation, and I really invite you to make this your own. It is the nature of life to give of itself. As it is the tree's nature to bear fruit and the flower's nature to bloom, it is my nature to share the gifts of my time, talent, and treasure. I participate in the divine flow of life, giving generously and receiving abundantly. I am blessed and I am a blessing. I am grateful. I am indeed so very grateful for this community. And I want to give a shout out. We had a gathering this weekend, Friday, of the Rocky Horror Picture Show. We had some new folks join us and watch the movie together. And we were dressed up in costume, and it was a great fun. So shout out to Pat Felton and to Erin and Donna and Norma and Deb and Tosh and everybody who participated in putting bags together. And it just was a really fun time. We are raising funds for the center. There will be more information coming out, but we have some serious repairs that need to be done and are in need of funds. You know, we're like every place else. We have a light bill, and we have grass that needs to be cut and insurance that needs to be paid and all those great things. So we invite you to support the center and just keep our work moving forward. And so I am grateful for each one of you. Thanks again for joining us. Be on the lookout for events as they come up. There'll be some things happening in person again soon as we ease our way back into life post-COVID. And so we will have a closing prayer. And it goes like this. This comes from James Dillett Freeman and our sister organization of Unity. A super simple prayer that you can just, again, make it your own. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. And the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. And I just affirm that all is well in your world as we each go into our respective life experiences, and know that any challenges that may be before you are just stepping stones to your greater yet to be. Thanks for joining us, and I will see some of you, I hope, on Zoom very soon. Take care. Have a great week.